Hello, and welcome to another episode of That Made Your List, a fortnightly podcast where an average, ordinary film fan, that's me, interviews other average, ordinary film fans. Before we start anywhere, I normally forget doing this. I really want us to do a shout out to a couple of people. First, Tony Heald, the runner and brainchild behind Feature Presentation Productions. He is the genius that edits and puts in all the little logos and posters onto these streams that you see after I've done butchering a question about them. Tony will come in, polish it all up and make it look good. Thanks, Tony. Also, Shay Watson. Shay Watson is an absolute musical genius. He just released an album during lockdown called From the Sink, because that's literally where he recorded this album. He kindly donated the first 10 seconds of one of his songs that got released. It's on Apple Music. And that's what's used as the intro and outro of these songs. So thank you, Shay. Thank you, Tony. You guys are amazing. Without you, this show would not be anywhere near as good as it is. Is it any good? No, we'll see. Okay, so yes, 10 questions each week. So joining me this week, we've got Jonathon Knowles, who is joining me all the way from Scotland.
Hello there. How's it going, man?
Very, very good. Thank you for joining me on That Made Your List. Before we start and before we go through your list, why don't you tell myself and the viewers just a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Johnny. I am, as you described, a very, very, very average film fan. I'm the kind of guy who, at the end of a long week, thinks there's nothing better than a nice drink and a good film. And as a result, in the last lockdown over the past year or so, I've watched quite a lot of good films. I'm really looking forward to talking about a lot of them. Films are, I guess, quite a big part of my life now, and they have been for about a decade, I suppose. As a kid, I wasn't a big film fan. There was like a few videotapes I had in the house, and I'd watch them over and over again. So there's a few ones that really stuck with me. But then it was only in my late teenage years it got to the point where a friend of mine was like, he was really into his films, and he was, okay, we'll try this one. He showed me like Goodfellas, and I didn't like it at all. I love it now, but at the time, like 17-year-old me was like, this is really boring. Like, nothing's happening. And then he showed me a film when I was about 17, which is going to be the first film we're going to talk about here, which kind of changed my enjoyment of cinema. And since then, it's just grown and grown and grown and grown. Got to the point where, I was normally going to the cinema once a week, and I really miss that. I'm looking forward to cinemas reopening again, safely, of course. Don't want to rush anything. But for now, I'm enjoying my Netflix and my Amazon Prime, my Disney Plus and my film collection, and it's helping me get through this fairly dark time.
Fantastic. That's good. Okay, well, you mentioned there the first film we'll talk about. So we'll dive into your list. We'll start right up at the top. It's the big one that some people struggle with. What is your favourite film?
Oh, it's a really hard question because it changes, depending on the context. I imagine most people don't normally have the one. In certain moods, I want to watch something that's going to really make me laugh. In certain films, I'm there going, I just want to watch something with big explosions and all that kind of stuff. The film I'm going to pick is certainly not the one that I guess I'd watch over and over again. It's not the one that it's not the film I've seen the most, for example. But I guess when you're picking your favourite film, it's kind of thing, I think a lot of people, they pick one quite early on and stick with it. And I'm just like that. So this film, my mate James, when I was about 17 or 18, we were at his house having a couple of drinks, and he said, I'm going to try this one. I'm going to see if you really, really like this one. And he put it in. And for the first 2/3, I didn't appreciate how well made it was or anything like that, or even the acting. I was enjoying the plot as it went along. I thought it was okay, this is really good. And then there's a twist. And I'm going to spoil this film for anyone. Who...
This 22-year-old film, you're going to spoil it?
Yeah.
Okay,
so spoilers.
Spoiler alert. Only put it in here. Spoiler alert for Fight Club.
If you've not seen Fight Club, listen away now, because the moment when it revealed that he was Tyler Durden, I remember my mouth just gaped open, and my mate just paused the film and looked at me and went, "Are you okay?" It floored me. I had never felt it before in anything I was watching. I felt betrayed by what I was watching. I was enthralled. It was brilliant. It was like the pain you got. Because, like I say, I'd not watched that many films at that point. I didn't see it coming. I didn't have a clue what was going to happen up to that point. And then it happened. And that moment, I feel, if I was going to pinpoint the moment that made me love films, it was watching that for my first time at my mate's house and just going, this is what film can do. And of course, it then goes on to the wonderful climax of all and how it then subsequently deals with it all. But rewatching Fight Club, it's just as good. Like I do find that there's more you gain from it on rewatch, especially all the things which are, the hints towards what's going to happen with that twist down the line. When they're passing people on the bus, the phone saying no incoming calls, little clever things like that. But it's more just I can really put myself in that mindset of the feeling I got when I first saw it, both from like the acting, like when you realize like how it gets more and more toxic and the atmosphere changes and the filmmaking gets darker. The moment when he's beating Jared Leto's face in and he's there, it's been so uncomfortable. It covers so many different kinds of emotions, and it's like. It wasn't the first film I ever saw, but it was the first film I ever loved. And because of that, I kind of put it in my bucket as my favourite film. I think that's okay. Like, in terms of recent films, it's Knives Out. I watched Knives Out like 4 times since I bought the Blu-ray. But
I really enjoyed it. As soon as I could get over Daniel Craig's accent,
which they hang on there, like, your foghorn leghorn accent.
I wasn't sure what to expect with Knives Out. I wasn't quite sure. I didn't know whether they're doing an updated Clue. Because it's got that kind of vibe about it when you read about it when it first starts, the murder mystery and the all-star cast and everything. I had my favourite film that I mentioned. God knows how long ago with this is The Usual Suspects. It's not a particularly politically correct film to say you really enjoy now, with Bryan Singer and his troubles with the film industry and Kevin Spacey and his issues. But the spoiler alert for probably an even older film.
Even older, I think
that moment when he's walking, where Verbal Kin's walking out and he gets the lighter out and lights it, and his foot, the limp goes, and he's there, and it's like the drops the more you see, and it's oh my god. He's Kaiser. Oh my! I had that moment that you had with Fight Club. I had with The Usual Suspects, and it's a film that I'm watching time and time again.
The best twist will stay with you. That's how good a twist can be, and that's how I kind of assess them ever since that. And of course, the early ones are so much easier to love because you've seen nothing like them. Whereas now, if you see a similar twist, let's take a film like Last Christmas, which you might have seen. That is the exact same like silly thing where one of the characters isn't there really, and there's weird flashbacks. They try and show how it all fit in, and it's like, okay, you're ripping off Fight Club. The exact same thing happens in Joker. You're ripping off Fight Club. Would they have been effective if Fight Club hadn't been there? Possibly a bit more so, but you remember the first time you saw something like that and it made your jaw hit the floor. A lot of films will have twists in the future that I'm sure will blow me away, but the first one that properly got to me, and I feel weird that I'm almost picking on the twist. There's so much more to the film than that, and the acting, and of course the filmmaking, but if we're talking about what made it my favourite film, that's the reason why. And I can remember it so, like, even after the first time I saw it, I can remember it almost scene for scene going forward, and I've seen it so many times since. But yeah, that's the one, and I feel if you like films like that, we're going to share a taste in films.
Yeah, so we go back to the cast with it. It's the two leads, Brad Pitt and Ed Norton.
Oh, fantastic.
Brad Pitt is so against type from previously. He'd always been the sort of the pretty boy, the look at me, I'm the heartthrob coming through. But playing Tyler Durden in this, he was a dirty, gritty, horrible person, obviously.
He gets more and more terrifying. Like from the beginning, he's there. At the beginning, you see why the narrator likes him. He brings this level of charm that, despite him clearly being awful, you can see why Ed Norton goes along with him. You can see why he gets dragged into the guy's, mystique and his lifestyle, and how that affects the relationship with Marla and things like that. But Brad Pitt is able to take that part and elevated as he gets worse and worse. And you, the audience, go along with him. At the start, you're like, oh, we get it. He's charming. He's Brad Pitt. He's also really handsome. And then suddenly, he's threatening to shoot a guy in the back of the head in the street for not going to college. And then you realize the gun wasn't loaded, and you're there going, oh, okay, we can still get on board with it. And then he's doing really big, very, very bad things. And because you almost feel, well, I've come this far, I'm going to keep going for the ride. And so when the narrator finally snaps with that whole relationship, that it then is able to progress. Meatloaf, fantastic. Helena Bonham Carter in probably the only role I've ever had any real respect for her in, where she's not this weird Tim Burton parody style thing of herself.
I think it's probably the only one that's not been Tim Burton-esque.
It's that and The King's Speech. They jump out as the only two where she's not, like even in Bellatrix Lestrange, she's playing the same character, just with a wand. She's an absolute delight. It's very of its time, but so many films are. It's very, very, very 90s in how things get bigger and bigger. That 90s macho culture, and I fully get why certain people watching it may take the message the wrong way, in the same way you see the Wolf of Wall Street of no, that guy's the bad guy. I know you like him because he's so charming and he's so charismatic as the lead, but you're not meant to want at the end to go, I'll go along with that guy. But no, it's just a brilliant film, and it's one of the films I would show if someone had never seen a film before. Watching that film would just let them see all kinds of what film can do. Right down to that silly scene where he's in that cave with the penguins at the start in the ice. It's just like, all the different ways the film journey can go. Fincher just handles it marvelously. Yeah, no,
absolutely. Fantastic. Like I say, every now and again we come across a film that's it's been mentioned before, I think, in someone else's list. I'll be surprised if it's not. And The Fight Club is one of those films that you could talk for ages and ages and ages and go through and easily dissect scene by scene and character by character. Fincher, as you say, dialed in absolutely perfectly with this. It's probably my favourite of his as well.
Okay. Well, let's see if we talk about any more David Fincher films this goes on, because the man's quite good. Quite good at the whole, making films thing.
Yeah, he does all right. He does all right. Okay, so we'll move on then, anyway. We'll jump into the second question, which is, what's the most recent film you've watched?
Okay. I've seen two films today, just because it was I know, it was great. I'll talk about both. They're very, very different, yet also very similar. Me and the wife just thought we'd watch it. Have a go watching a couple. The first one we watched was an Oscar Best Picture winner. It stars Meryl Streep and Robert Redford and is approximately 12 days long. It is the 1985, I think it was, Best Picture winner Out of Africa. I've
tried to watch it before, and it was probably a Sunday afternoon when we watched it, and I fell asleep.
It's a really interesting cinematic experience for me. Some of it's amazing, and I mean amazing. The cinematography in that film is as good as you will possibly see, especially in films of that era. The way he shoots Africa, it's almost like a commercial for going to visit parts of Africa. The animals are shot wonderfully. The scene where they're flying the biplane down over the flamingos, which I didn't realize came from that film. It's just one of the most astonishing things I've ever seen, not at the cinema, but but in terms of sitting down to watch a movie. The acting's good. Streep is Streep. Yeah. I think she'll go places.
You're not going to get a performance from Streep or Redford. You don't get them.
I would, for your first one, I would throw out Mary Poppins Returns. And go, no. I'll be having no questions at this time. She's awful in that movie. Oh, okay. But she's a brilliant actress. She's brilliant here. She's playing her character's Danish. And as a result, she puts on this weird Gal Gadot style accent. I think it might be a Danish accent. I don't know any Danish people. But she's really, really good. Redford comes and goes throughout the film a lot more than I thought he would. But he's also really good. And the supporting cast are all fairly strong. My big issue with the film, well, two issues. The first one is there is no need for this film to be, I think it's 2 hours 40. It could have been it could have been a just as good 2-hour-long film. There was just
Yeah.
nothing that required it to be. There were so many scenes that were cut. At one point, they're traveling across the wilderness with some cows, and they come to a river, and the cows have to go down into the river and then walk up the other side of the river. This takes about a minute, and they're going. You could just shown them over the river, or not shown the river. Like, I didn't need to know there was a river there. Nothing was gained other than some nice photography of some cows going over a river. And there's a fair few scenes like that throughout the film.
Yeah.
My biggest issue with it, this comes up a lot with I find in true stories. It's very what I call and then storytelling, and it's not my term, but like she does this, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this guy does this, and then she finds out this, and then they go and do this, and then her and Redford do this.
Yeah.
A few things at the end do like pick up from early in the film. Like at one point she gets given a compass by Redford, and at the end of the film she gives it to someone else, and you're there going, oh yeah, that's from 5 days ago in my real-time life when at the point that happened. But that happens so few times in the film, it just feels like a bit of a mess. And of course it's the true story, so it's not as cinematic, but it just felt a bit of a problem that the film had. That being said, it's worth a watch. It's a solid 6 out of 10. It's a good movie. It's interesting on Rotten Tomatoes. It's only about 60%, which for Best Picture winner, you kind of think it would be higher. Oh, and also the score on that movie is incredible. Like the soundtrack. Afterwards, I went to wash the dishes and just played the main theme. It is beautiful music. Mm-hmm. It's worth a watch if you have 3 hours. There are many better films out there, including the one I've watched most recently, Netflix's new film, The Dig, which you may or may not have heard of.
I have heard of this, actually. I say that I've heard of it. I heard of it because I get emails from Netflix saying, we've entered a new film onto the rotation. I actually quite like the look of this.
It is also a true story. It's a British period film. It stars Ralph Fiennes, Voldemort himself, as a excavator who is lured away from his museum by Carey Mulligan, who is 35 years old, playing a person who was 55 years old in real life, because that's how Hollywood works. When we're casting a girl, let's cast a younger, pretty one. And she's a very wealthy woman, and she's got some plots on her land which she thinks they're like old burial sites or something like that, and she wants someone to come in and dig them up. And after a bit of negotiating, he is willing to do that. And I mean, it's hardly a spoiler to say that it would be quite a boring film if he went, actually, no, ma'am, there's nothing there. Nothing there. I found four bottle caps and a pack of Watsits. So they find things, and things of the level of significance that the British Museum gets involved, wanting to take over the site, bringing in more people, all against the backdrop of Carey Mulligan's declining health. And how Ray finds his character is there trying to both do what he does best in the excavation and also trying to understand the world around him. It is an absolute delight. If you like British period films, and I do, I'm a big fan of that kind of thing. It's just absolutely lovely. The acting is incredible. Mulligan, I've not seen Promising Young Woman, which is her big Oscar push at the moment, mainly because it's not out here in the UK. We can't legally watch it anywhere. She gives one hell of a performance here, and the kid. I'm not sure the name. The kid playing her child is one of the best
on an online website to check.
If only there was. He's one of the best child actors I've seen in a long time, and properly got me and my wife emotionally watching it, just seeing him, how he is reacting to everything changing around him, as he's ultimately just an 8-year-old kid trying to understand the world and be adventurous. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this film takes place, I think, in 1939. And quite big things happened in 1939 worldwide, especially in Europe. And how this all then integrates with what's happening, it's really entertaining. There's, I guess, a minor issue in that new characters are introduced over halfway through the film, and although these characters are good and they fully work, that it does dilute the original relationships.
Yeah.
And so I'm there really into this main three, you know, the Ray Fiennes, Carey Mulligan, and Little Boy, and how they're all interacting.
I can't tell because there is no little boy showing on here unless it's Rory Lomax as the character.
No, he's one of the characters who turns up halfway through. That's Johnny Flynn.
Right, in which case, then I can see no little boy scrolling through here. I don't know. Anyway,
And this mystery boy.
Mystery boy.
But the relationship of those three is just really, really engaging, mainly through their performance and really good writing and filmmaking. It's shot really, really well, I thought. It's a beautiful depiction of the British countryside. And it does get a bit diluted when suddenly you get these 3 or 4 new characters, all of whom have their own interlacing relationships that the film does expect you to care about. And I did to an extent, but not as much as the first ones. So it was by no means taking me out of the film, but I was there going, okay, we haven't had much Ray Fiennes for quite a while. Can we have another scene of him now? Is that okay? But I thoroughly recommend this film, especially if you like completely nice. It's not the most challenging movie. You know, it's not going to make you think, but it's going to make you go, oh, that was a nice thing, and it's a true story. And it's a nice historical biopic. For those of you doing the feature presentation productions 52 film week challenge thing.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's a great one to tick off, the biopic about someone you've never heard of, because it's all true. And I didn't know these people existed and this thing happened, but it's a very true story of what happened in their life. I would thoroughly recommend it.
Oh, fantastic. And say I've seen it pop up on there. It is one that I'm not a massive period drama. I'm not a massive period drama fan, but at the same time, it's not something I purposely shy away from. So yeah, I will at some point flick through it and sit down and watch that. So there we go. Okay, we're going to jump into the first of the genre question. What's your favourite action?
There are 2. And one of them was a perfect answer to a later question. So I'm not going to go for that one. I'm going to go for the other one. My friends, especially, you know, in the 10s, when I was watching a lot more films, understanding a lot more about film language and trying to articulate it. Yeah. A lot of them gave me comments about things like, why can't you just turn your brain off and enjoy it? And I found that's difficult. The films like Pacific Rim, I really don't like that film. I just find it stupid and the action isn't fun. And they're like, oh no, it's silly fun. No, it's not. If you're going to go silly fun, I want the silly fun to be an extra level of silly fun. Yeah. I want you to have a supporting cast filled by everyone who are just almost playing pantomime villains. I want John Malkovich at his best John Malkovich, and I want Nicolas Cage saying, don't treat woman like that, in that weird way he does, and why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box? I think Con Air is a masterpiece. I first saw Con Air back at university. Me and my housemates, one night we were just having a couple of beers, and my mate said, let's watch Con Air. I'd never heard of it. We put it on. I was just in love from the first minute. Well, no, maybe not the first minute, but certainly the minute when all the people we see John Cusack describing all the characters in this terrible exposition where this one is Billy Bedlam. He's a bad guy. This one is Ving Rhames. He's a bad guy. I know it's Nathan Jones, Diamond Dog, but it's Ving Rhames. It's just wonderful. And then it just gets stupider from there. And all the characters are having a great time. And the next day, so my housemates said they played rugby, and they were on a social the next day, and I was just in the house by myself. And so I just went and got the DVD and I watched it again. I can't think of many films I've just watched 2 days in a row because I loved it so much the first time. It's my level of action stupid. The scene where the plane crashes onto the strip is just my level of just, this is so ridiculous, but I love it so much. And they pick up Danny Trejo's body and his arms come off. The scene where Nicolas Cage and John Malkovich are fighting, and a propeller flies through the plane to separate them. It's ridiculous. Malkovich's monologues in the middle. The scene where John Cusack is able to just drop a crane onto the small biplane taking off with the Francisco on, even though he just climbs in and instantly presses one button and it's already warmed up and on and just instantly drops. Absolutely. It is just stupid beyond stupid. And if you're going to go stupid beyond stupid, you need Nicolas Cage. And
Yes.
You need that level of fun. It's just fun. It's a great fun time. There's two kinds of action films, I feel. The kind that you can pretend are realistic, and the kind that you can sit back and go, this is not realistic, and I love you for it so much. And for me, that's extremely high on the list. I know other people prefer The Rock or Face Off from that holy trinity of Nick Cage movies. I think they're both great as well. Maybe just Con Air for the supporting cast. I think they just escalate it a little bit higher for me, but it's Nick Cage, man. If you don't like Nick Cage action films, you don't like action films.
No, it's an absolutely fantastic film. It's one that I think personally they could have finished it when they crashed the plane. They didn't need the extra chase scene afterwards.
Yep.
Personally, but it doesn't ruin what's gone on before that. My first time I watched this was in Nottingham. At the old Showcase Cinema at down near QMC, because my now wife still does works at the Nottingham University near Woollerton Park. So
was that in the cinema, like the first release in the late 90s, or?
Yes.
Oh, wow, it must have been amazing.
Yes,
that must have been fantastic to see on the big screen.
I say that. I was at the time working and starting work at 3:30 in the morning. I'd leave Nottingham at 2:00 in the morning, go down to Leicester, work from 3:30 until 1, go home, get changed, drive back up to Nottingham, go back to where my wife was living on campus, potter around, then we'll go to the cinema. I fell asleep during Con Air.
You're the one.
You're
the one person. You're the one person in the world who's managed to sleep through Con Air.
In my defence, I'd been up for almost 20 hours straight by the time we watched it. But I have watched it since. And
I'm assuming since then you've watched it a few times.
I'd really enjoyed it before that. It was just, I must have been about 19, 20 hours awake, up and moving. And I just went.
Well, if anyone's watching that, it's not a good reflection of my experience watching Con Air, which was, this is the most awesome thing ever. This is so good. Dave Chappelle just got dropped onto a car window. That is what I want to see in my movies.
Yes. I want to point out, this is not a reflection of how I feel about the film. I love the film. Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, but
chillingly amazing.
Something to be said where your comic relief is a mass murderer, potential paedophile, and you get this weird scene where you meant to go, "Yay, he didn't kill the child," where he's already, the extended version at least, he's already committed one murder of one of the guards on the plane. Just which Malkovich then goes, "Do you feel better now?" It's like, what the hell is happening? But yeah, it's he's ridiculous. There's MC Gainey. I love the character actor MC Gainey. I'm a big fan of him. If you've ever seen Justified, he's the main antagonist in series 1. If you ever watched the TV show Lost, he was Tom Friendly, the guy with the beard who stole Walt at the end of the first season and appeared throughout the rest of the show, pretty much. He plays Swamp Thing, the pilot in Con Air, and I love how that character is used. Just this guy who likes to fly planes and is here. I'm gonna just happily board the plane like this, get in the cockpit and fly it away. I'd also like to point out, I'm struggling to think of any worse here. The worst line read of all time, which is one of the FBI agents, I think he is, at Carson City, when the walkie-talkie goes off saying, "Guys, stop them! Those aren't whatever they're called, staff. They're cons." Yeah. And the guy just almost turns the camera and goes, "Christ!" As if that's your reaction. Just Christ. Do another take. Do it with any kind of realistic emotion, or just go, "Christ." Then he gets killed in his next scene. Malkovich takes him out. But yeah, it's also one of those films where I can talk about anything that happens in it. Nothing's a spoiler. No one cares what's happening. It's all about the journey. Nothing can be said about Con Air that ruins it. I love how it got, and the music is well. Leanne Rimes singing "How Do I Live?" One of the only 3 things ever to be up for both an Oscar and a Razzie in the same year. It was up for both Best Original Song and Worst Original Song. That just makes me so happy. Yeah,
Yes.
it's that kind of movie. It's that kind of thing. And
Fantastic.
if you don't like Con Air, we're not friends, and we'll just leave it at that.
No, I fell asleep during it, but I really enjoy it. Okay, skipping with genres, we're moving over one. What's your favourite horror?
Favourite's a really weird word here. Because I have two very distinct directions I'm going to take this question in. The first one is, which one is genuinely the best horror movie you've ever seen? I'm not a big horror guy. I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. I don't particularly enjoy being scared too much. If it's a good film, I'm going to enjoy it. Like, The Exorcist, The Shining, a lot of the classics I enjoy. But slashers where it's X person goes around doing lots of murders that get really gory, like the concept of like Hostel bothers me. So I've only watched a lot of the classics, I suppose. But John Carpenter's version of The Thing, blew me away. It is. That is how you earn your gore. That is how, we'll start with the effects and that kind of side. This one I won't spoil, because if you've not seen The Thing, there is probably my favorite scary moment ever. You'll know which scene it is if you have seen The Thing. But throughout, the body horror that they use is actually surprisingly sparing. It's not used that frequently, but when they do, it's genuinely horrific and revolting and terrifying. But that's not what makes it scary, and you almost feel the film would succeed completely without that, because of the tension and the atmosphere and the claustrophobia and the lack of trust that Carpenter is able to create with his direction. I feel that the way that close-ups are used, the way that pauses are used, the way that the sound mixing is used, moments where at one point one character just shoots another very out of the blue because they're all on edge, and the way that is done just made me jump a mile. There's a scene in the second half of the film which is probably my favorite ever example of how to use suspense. It's one of those scenes you've seen in many films where there's a jump coming, but where is it going to come? And it's when they're trying to work out, not say how, trying to work out who's the thing and who's not the thing. And that moment just, I'm getting shiver thinking about how well that is done, and then what happens after that. These people are stuck in this world where they don't know the rules of what they're dealing with. You also think about the pacing is just so good from the start. Like when the situation where the stuff doesn't get going for well over half an hour in that movie, and before that they fly out to the Norwegian camp and see how that is, and then they come back. It takes its time, and that makes you care. I don't like most of the characters in that film, but I feel I know them a lot more than you get in most just slashers and things like that, And then when spoilers, some people die in that movie. I'm sorry, I ruined the thing. Oh, sorry, guys. I know it was on your list, wasn't it? But when people are killed off, you feel it. One character at the end screaming that he doesn't want to be stuck to the chair, and you believe him and you feel his pain and how helpless they are, and you feel helpless watching it. And I don't want to spoil too much of the ending, other than it's one of my favorite endings of all time. And what you think is going to happen, or I thought was going to happen, just didn't happen. And I found that incredibly bold. And incredibly depressing, and I came out of the film just like it was hit by a sledgehammer, while also in awe of the effects and that. It had everything that in my mind you would ever want from a horror movie, and it's comfortably, in my opinion, the best horror movie. But it's not my answer to this question, because your question here was, what is my favorite horror movie? And I quite like bad movies. I quite like watching bad movies, especially I think when I was at university, going back home to see my mates over summers and things like that, a big thing we liked to do was have some beers and watch films that we could have a laugh at and enjoy, like The Room. I've seen The Room live in London with Tommy Wiseau there. I have hugged Tommy Wiseau. He smelled weird. Not an experience I would recommend to other people. But I'd say probably my favourite bad movie, and the one that I think I've seen the most, probably the horror movie I have seen the most, is M. Night Shyamalan's masterpiece, The Happening.
That's not a horror film. That is a nothing.
I will say this, that it is meant to be a horror film,
Yes.
and if you're meant to be a horror film, you're a horror film in my books. You don't have to be a good one. And The Happening is not scary in the slightest. It's hilarious. I mean, again, spoilers for The Happening. The trees are turning on people and making you kill yourself in the funniest way possible. And if that's not a movie you want to see, then at one point,
I much preferred the episode of Doctor Who where the trees killed everyone to save the Earth.
Yeah. I didn't.
That's a much better version of The Happening.
Because that had some merit in its filmmaking. It literally opened with two girls reading a book on a bench, and one of them gets a bit dizzy as the trees are doing something to her. And then she goes, "Oh, I lost my place." And the other girl turns to her and goes, "You were on page 94, the bit where the murderer turns up." How is she knowing what the other person is? How does she know where she was in the book? Literally, the first lines of the movie make no sense. And then the girl takes her hairpin out and jams it through her neck. And it should be scary. It's not. It's absolutely stupid. It's great. We then go on to meet Mark Wahlberg, who's talking in this really weird voice, where he's doing this weird up inflection every line. It's great. And then we meet Zooey Deschanel. And before I mention that guy in Con Air may have had the worst acting, Zooey Deschanel gives the worst performance ever committed to film. And it makes you kill yourself just when you thought there was no more evil that could be invented. Literally nothing works about The Happening, and that's why I love it so much. Mark Wahlberg at one point, to prove that they're normal, sings through a wooden fence. Meanwhile, the people inside pull out a shotgun and randomly shoot some children. Towards the climax of the film, they think they're going to die, and so they decide to die together, putting a small child whose dad just died in harm's way. You get that lady who says, "Are you trying to murder me in my sleep?" Which Wahlberg goes, "What? No, it's." I mean, I could have had this in the next few questions. We're getting best comedy. I could have gone for The Happening. I could have gone for The Happening. It's a laugh a minute. It's wonderful. It's meant to be a horror film. At one point, someone turns on a big lawnmower and goes and lies in front of it. That's how stupid we're talking. And you asked for my favourite. If I could have one horror film on a desert island, I'm taking The Happening. And I'm having a great time watching it over and over again. I can certainly watch that film more than I can watch The Thing.
Fantastic. I applaud your choice. I will, however.
No, you don't.
No. Hey, look, I'll be brutally honest. The title of the podcast, That Made Your List, when it's written down, has 3 question marks at the end. It's like, that made your list. That phrase normally comes out a lot later on, normally during the most overrated, underrated one. But I'm firing it right now. On question 4, seriously, your favourite horror is The Habit. That made your list. Seriously.
That made my list. Take that, John Carpenter and Wes Craven and acclaimed filmmakers. M. Night Shyamalan has you.
Yeah. So John Carpenter in 1982 made The Thing, the film he professed to be his all-time favourite personal film. Ennio Morricone scored the thing. I'm not talking about The Happening. It's not going to happen. I will talk about The Thing. I'm not talking about it. Look, it is what it is. I've seen it once. I got bored watching it. I don't think I even laughed. I was just bored with it. But as you say, the beauty of film is everybody gets something else out of different things. I'm not going to go back and rewatch The Happening, though. It's not going to happen. Bing. What we will do is move on to the broadest genre possible that encapsulates so many different films into it. But what is your favourite drama?
This was hard because, as you said, I did not know where to go with this. There's so many different varieties. I was really tempted to go on the mystery route. I like good mystery films. I think the Lumet version of Murder on the Orient Express is wonderful. I love that movie. I only saw it quite recently, but I adore it. Knives Out is my favourite film in the past few years. I thought Parasite, in terms of what it gave me, was one of the most effective films I've ever seen. And again, having seen so many films, it's rare to have a film that just completely, I did not think it was going in that direction. And wow, that film takes a turn that I did not really expect. If I go for a classic one, like a lot of the earlier, more influential films or things I like, I look down my letterbox to try and decide an answer. And in the end, I just decided I'd go for my favourite film on my list that I hadn't given to any of the other answers. I think it was the last one that I filled in doing the full list. And I'm going to pull it back to D. Finch. And what I think is, I prefer Fight Club, but I'd say his best film, my favourite one is Fight Club, but the actual best thing he's ever made is The Social Network, which I think is on pure, like, in terms of the parts that go into it, the best made film I think ever. The directing, by this point, Fincher has found his style, and I felt early on he knew how to do the thriller atmosphere. By this point, he learned so much more about how to expand that into other kind of discussions. The screenwriting by Sorkin is probably my favorite script. If I had to pick one, I'd go that. The way it intercuts all the storylines, especially, you can easily point at the courtroom cases and the past, and you realize it's multiple courtroom cases, both which are given a lot of prominence. And then it's also the Facebook side and also their own personal and friendship developments, none of which ever get forgotten. And that's just amazing. When you're juggling so many different kinds of dynamics, before we were talking about The Dig, and The Dig introduces new characters halfway through, in the same way The Social Network does with Timberlake when he comes in. But it doesn't tread on any of the other existing relationships. It just, I guess, enhances and exacerbates a lot of the problems they're having. And that's just masterful. The acting is, everyone in that film is great. You look at Eisenberg and Garfield get all the plaudits. Eisenberg was Oscar nominated, but Timberlake is so good. And that's when it comes in the arrogant role halfway through. The guy playing Peter Thiel is a venture capitalist, has that level of gravitas that really then puts the contrast in with the kind of world they're living in. You get Rooney Mara at the beginning, that opening sequence, the dialogue they're having and how it's shot and how it's cut back and forth. You'll go through life thinking people hate you because you're a nerd. It's not that, it's because you're an asshole. That's what I want to see in my discussions. And the gut punch at the end, when again, it doesn't end the way that I thought it was going to end. Because, it's a real life story, but you don't really not quite certain of how it's going to get there. And you realize at the end that, look at the world we're living in now. The bad guys can win in certain ways. And it's weird. And what is a bad guy in this? I saw it at the cinema when it first came out, and I remember being devastated that it ended. I wanted it to keep going. It was just the most engrossing film I could probably think of. It's just from beginning to end wonderful. It probably does have a couple of flaws. Now I step back, a bit more time with it. The way it treats women probably could be slightly better, but equally, it's being viewed from the point of view of its main characters, who probably didn't see it all that way. And frankly, Rooney Mara at the beginning definitely gives it a level of a female perspective that I think the film needs. In that, no, the guy is absolutely an asshole. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't mentioned the score. Hand covers Bruise, the piano riff that I play I've got piano downstairs, play it all the time. Just such an effective piece of scoring. As well as that, the beat they have at the start during the scene where he's drunk and doing the blogging. Dum, 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 dum. It's not quite Blue Monday, but it sounds a bit like Blue Monday, and just propels it going forward. It's just a film that I went into thinking, okay, let's see how this film's going to be. And I came out just unable to stop thinking about it. And I guess I've kind of been that way to this day, I suppose. It's a film, again, that there's a few more come to later on that I can just throw on whenever I want. Just no matter what my mood, I can put on The Social Network. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to give me a really good time. I just think it's a delight, and I could not recommend it more.
No, absolutely. You say it is most definitely a Fincher film, but Sorkin, as you say, Sorkin's screenplay, it has got his fingerprints. And you can just see his influence and his style of writing all the way through it. He's a guy. If I know he's involved in a film, Sorkin, I will make an effort to watch and because there's not a thing of his I don't think I've not enjoyed the writing of it.
Same.
Yes.
Same. Yeah. I was a big fan of Molly's Game. I know a lot of people were more mixed on that one. I was a big fan of Molly's Game, and the Trial of the Chicago 7 was in my top 10 of last year. I thought that was a lovely film, and Sacha Baron Cohen was a delight in that as well. But yeah, no, I really like The Social Network, and then you can step back and think things like the trailer playing that version of Creep, just really effective. I know it's not actually in the film, but that really works. It's bold filmmaking as well. Some of the decisions that Fincher makes, the way how stylish it gets on certain things. I think of like in the Hall of the Mountain King playing as the Winklevoss during the boat race. And how different is to most of the rest of the stuff. A lot of people talk about the scene where it's Timberlake talking to Eisenberg in the club, and it's quite hard to hear them. And you actually have to almost like, well, what are they saying? Oh, wait, they don't know. And that's kind of the point of the scene, as opposed to normally where it's like, no, you cannot hear each other. Don't pretend you two can hear each other.
It's never a normal conversation in a club. It's not. It's what? Yeah.
Yeah, I hate clubs.
It's been so long since I've been to one now. Who am I kidding? I'm 45. My God, is this crying out loud? Last time I was in a nightclub when you couldn't hear anything. Jesus, well, we're talking 20 years.
Not quite that long for me, but it's 5 or 6 for me, and I don't want to go back. I'm cool not going back. But no, it works really well, and it's made Andrew Garfield a star, hasn't it? I think Eisenberg did a few things before that, but it's kept him as in the eyes of dramatic actor. Yeah, if I was to pick a single scene from the movie, or most movies, I suppose, that opening sequence, the dialogue, and how the conversation grows and falls, and then the tensions arise all over just a drink, and you want to get something to eat. As they talk about the finals club, they talk about the easiest one to get into and things like that, right down to Mara leaving him at the end. That's as effective an opening sequence as I can think of. Keen to think of any others, but just the way that gets, the characters, the setup, his dynamics with the people, and you suddenly get his anger. Same when you think about Tyler Durden back at Fight Club. Fincher makes you get where the dickhead is coming from. And that's an amazing skill. You don't have that in most films. Yeah. Most films, you don't know that person's awful. Can they go away? I watched a new film called A Baby Done. It stars Rose Matafeo, the comedian, and it doesn't work for me at all, because the entire point of it is she's pregnant and she wants to do things with her life, and she's scared she won't be able to do them, and so she's trying to do them while pregnant. And she comes across as a total dickhead for the entirety of the movie. Fincher also has his characters be dickheads, but you know why they're dickheads, and you almost go along with them. When Zuckerberg stands up in front of that board and says he should get some recognition for making the face comparison thing, it's just a marvel. But you get it, and that's what Fincher can do with cinema. I think he's an extremely talented man.
Fantastic. Okay, we're sticking with genres. We're moving on again. This time, it's another one that's probably you've got. I know I've got 2 or 3 that I can pull out of the hat at any time with it. But what's your favourite comedy?
I found this one really hard. Not as hard as drama, but drama's broad drama. I suppose there were so many I could have gone for. This one, there weren't that many for me. A lot of comedies, I find I'm a one and done kind of person. Like I don't normally let's take Deadpool. Deadpool is a really good stand-up comedy show for me. You watch it, you enjoy it. I have no real desire to watch Deadpool again. You don't watch it for the great visual effects. You watch it for that was good. But if the gags aren't, if you know the gags are coming, it's harder to continue with. So I guess a few I was thinking, you go for like a film which is a really, really good film, and then the gags are on top. I think everyone in this community, I'm a big fan of Edgar Wright and some of his films. I probably prefer Shaun of the Dead to Hot Fuzz, but I love both, and I also like The World's End a lot as well. I nearly went with Shaun of the Dead for this. It's probably a better film than what I'm going to pick, but as an outright comedy, I don't think so. I've always loved Airplane. Again, the same guy showed me Con Air, showed me Airplane back at university, and I laughed a lot. I rewatched it last year with my wife. I still laughed, even though no jokes are coming. You laughed. So where I'm actually going to go with this is an animation. I love animation. I'm going to see this in a fair few of my picks going down this list. There are ones that aren't specific animated films. I've gone for a cartoon, I suppose. I don't really know why. I've just always been a fan. So when I was a kid, but I like Pixar films. I've tried to see a lot of them. I also like a lot of superhero films, and I feel that superhero films combine with comedy, combine with animation, and what that can do with physical comedy, but you can't do with real people, because suddenly you can be a lot more silly. And I feel the people who perfected that cartoon silliness, as well as that dry sense of humor, were the guys who made the Lego movie, Lord and Miller. And I feel they peaked. I know it wasn't them who made it, but that style was completely rolled into the Lego Batman movie, which I'm going to pick as my favorite comedy. Purely for the jokes. I like to fight around. It's just, it's so wonderful. It's just silly joke after silly joke after silly joke. The way Batman is there, dressed in in his Bruce Wayne outfit, going, I don't know who Bruce Wayne is, or Batman. It sounds like a cool guy. It's just really, really silly. Putting lobster thermidor in bloody microwave and just pressing it for 30 seconds, and it comes out. What's the password to get into the Batcave? Iron Man sucks. That's what I want for my level of silliness. And it plays off superhero films, which is still, of course, a big thing in the zeitgeist. And that's something that, it's very easy to take a good shot at it. And it takes lots of really, really good shots. The entire concept at the end, the Joker just wants Batman to be his arch nemesis in this weird, kind of loving way. And they all pull together to pull the town back, and it clicks into place because it's Lego. That is my level of stupid. That just makes me smile thinking about it. I think Rosario Dawson is hilarious as Batgirl. Michael Cera is perfectly cast as Robin there, who accidentally gets adopted and just turns up in the Batcave as a result one day. I'm just laughing thinking about it. It's really stupid. And I guess for me, the most enduring comedy you can watch over and over again, for me, is comedy that's just a bit silly and stupid and makes you smile. Nearly went Airplane for that reason, but I'm going to go for Lego Batman movie.
No, I absolutely adore all the Lego films. Yeah, this one's not my favourite. The Lego movie I prefer still. Sure. It's just bits in there that just ping in nicely. I am not at all that dad in the Lego movie that's craggled. Yes, I am. I have had Lego sets for my boys, and because he wanted the helicopter, and then he kept breaking it. Daddy, I don't want it to break. Okay, I'll super glue it. I've craggled it.
You've craggled it. You've craggled it.
Oh, my hand up. Yeah, done it. And then we tried my best to break it apart again afterwards when he decided he doesn't want this. He wants to build his own.
In fact, my Lego over there. My Lego back there has not been craggled. Yes. It's very much for taking apart at some point and building again.
But the Lego Batman, I'm a massive. I love superhero movies. I'm a big fan of the Batman films. Batman '89. There's so many different. I mean, at one point in there, he says, "Do you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." Direct line rip-off from Batman '89. Billy D. Williams voices Two-Face.
Yeah, so good.
He was in '89 as Harvey Dent.
And then was replaced by Tommy Lee Jones in the third one.
We don't mention that film. As much as I'm a Batman fan, we don't mention that film.
That scene where the flashbacks, and he flashes back through all of the different ones, starting with the Adam West style in Batman, and through to Batman versus Superman, just grumpy at each other in the rain. It's so good. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. And what's it? The shark repellent, which is from Batman '66. The way it brings it all together. So an 11-year-old watching the Lego Batman is not going to understand the you want to get nuts, let's get nuts fan. He's not going to understand why the shark repellent is so funny. But they'll
still find it funny. They'll still find it funny, though, because it's still inherently silly. And that's what the film gets. So much care has been taken in ensuring the silliness of Batman, because Batman is a really silly character who is often taken so seriously. And that's why you can get so much humor out of just not portraying him in a silly way, but portraying him how he should be portrayed based on his appearance and his situation. It's just great. Yeah. I think so much care was taken with that movie. And that's why it comes across so effortless, I suppose. Yeah, and right down to you got to love a Lego Voldemort attacking the city. It's wonderful.
Yes,
Daleks turning up.
It's absolutely the more I think about it, it's up there somewhere. Yeah, it's there. In fact, it is just there. I could just about reach my tiptoe with it. It's one that we watched again now that I've spoke about it. It's a fantastic film. Okay, we're moving away from genres. We're done with genres for a minute. But give me a film that makes you happy.
Yeah, this was hard again, mainly because I don't normally rewatch films to feel an emotion. I normally feel this is. Sometimes I get the feeling the film's meant to be giving me. Often when I rewatch, I don't quite get the same effect. For the truly great films, I suppose I do. I also struggle to rewatch films quite a lot. Often when I've seen a film once, I don't really get that instinct to always watch it again. That's why watching Con Air twice in 2 days that time was very much a novelty for me and how it all comes through. Again, I'll bring up Knives Out again. That film has definitely put a big smile on my face. One film that I've liked a lot recently has been Ocean's 8. I don't know why I don't get why that film isn't seen as being as good as Ocean's 11. I think it's better. And again, I find the heist energy very happy and how it all just gets big and over the top, and they're all charismatic.
I was having a chat, or I was involved in an online chat about, you got mentioned just the other day, Ocean's 8 did, and I think the line came out from someone else in the chat. I think it got blowback from the female Ghostbusters. I think that was so polarized at that. I think then the let's do a female Oceans. I think that got tarnished by the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Ocean's 11, the heist is better. I think Ocean's 8, the cast is better. Like, I don't think that some of I think the main ones are great in the Ocean's 11 film. When you get down to some of the ones below Don Cheadle, they're quite bland. I feel that they get a lot more characterization in the Ocean's 8. It's easier. There's less of them. And they work very well. That's not what I'm going with. Just a film that I've seen a few times and I go, this makes me smile. I like the heist. It's a bit of good fun. Film I want to mention here again, I'm not going to go for, is Juno, a film that ever since I first saw it, I just went, oh, I like this kind of thing. I thought a good little twee adventure. And the last honorable mention, I suppose, for this one I've gone for is the entire collection of Muppets films, because if I'm ever feeling sad, I know I can put on the Muppets. It's just called The Muppets, isn't it? Life's a happy song when there's someone by your side to sing along. The level of silliness you get from that, or the original Muppet movie, or probably best around Christmas time, the Christmas Carol. I know a lot of those are word for word, and they just put a smile on my face because of the silliness. But I've not gone for a silly one. I've gone for a film that makes me happy because it gives me a big, I guess, adrenaline rush, I suppose. And I guess it's kind of pun intended there. It's a film that when I'm watching it, I find it engrossing, but not in the same way that Social Network's engrossing, because it's the story and the way the filmmaking craft is pushing this along with a filmmaking crescendo and a narrative crescendo. This film is literally building towards a sports title. I love that. And it's a sport that I'm using sport in the looser sense of the word. Driving cars around in a circle. I'm going for the Ron Howard film, the Ron Howard film Rush. Puts a smile on my face. The interaction between Hemsworth at his most charismatic, more so than even as Fat Thor, when he's very charismatic as Thor, and Daniel Bruhl, who was cruelly snubbed by the Oscars. He got every other major nomination. He didn't get an Oscar nomination. The way that Peter Morgan's script in that movie makes you both love and hate them both, as it's all building to the one big final event. It's like watching a wonderful football game, a wonderful real sports match, but watching it where you get to know the characters and seeing their relationships and seeing how they develop as people. Because they both really change over the course of the film for the better, learning respect for each other. And then a final race sequence that just makes me, I don't want to spoil it, but
this one is a little bit more modern, so
it's a bit more modern, and also
then again, it's also historic. So
it's a weird biopic style again.
60 years ago, so
but it's not many people have Googled the F1 season of 1976 or whatever it is. But what happens with Lauda in the final race is just for me one of the moments that makes me just stand up and punch the air. And the same then goes on to happens with Hemsworth in the final race and their final relationship, the scene they have at the hangar as the film concludes. it's just a thrill ride. And I suppose it's like, what ride do you like? It's a ride that makes you happy, and you say, well, I quite like a roller coaster. I find that film to be like a roller coaster when I'm watching it, right down from the arrogance in their differences at the beginning. Of course, Natalie Dormer playing sexy girl number 4, which she's really good at playing. She's played that in a lot of movies. Captain America, exact same character. But her offsetting the Hemsworth character, and then how Daniel Bruhl's character takes that against the Hemsworth one. I'm trying to give away too much here.
Yeah.
But two very different people in a very similar situation, trying to race to be the best, both taking very different directions, and ending up in a very, very thrilling final chase after a huge twist in the middle third as well, but that then still builds the crescendo the film needs. It's a sports film that exceeds all of the sports films I've seen for me, and it makes me smile. I just think about it, and I it's like, yes, get in. That's what I wanted to happen, but also kind of not, because the way it works with two characters is you support and hate both, and that's an amazing work of writing from Peter Morgan, and Ron Howard directs the hell out of it. If you haven't seen it, and I know a lot of people haven't seen this film, I recommend it enough.
Yeah, I think I might have definitely seen it. Watched it on the sofa, watched it with the wife. I can't remember if it popped up through Netflix or if it was on Sky Movies premiere, or whichever one. We've definitely seen it, and it's one that kept me from having my phone in my hand. So that's when it's a good film. If I can manage to keep my phone in my pocket or on the side, then it's a decent film. That's fantastic. Okay, we'll flip this question on its head then. What's a film that makes you sad? And obviously, the happening's already been, so that can't be one of them.
Yeah, I can't go for that. I'm a very sad person for liking The Happening. I do get what you're saying there. I don't like sad films normally, and a lot of people's answer to this will normally be some of these really depressing movies. When I read, I tend to research into a film a little bit just to see what Rotten Tomatoes scores. I don't particularly like watching films that are just middle of the road ones, or films that are meant to be really depressing. So I don't watch films to be depressed. Like, look outside the window. Quite a depressing world at the moment. I don't particularly want to watch lots of really sad films. And a lot of films that I've watched that have made me sad or hit me in a certain way, I often find it's not something I want to watch again, I suppose. There's a few that I thought of to go down this route for that I love. I'm going to limit this to films I actually like. That kind of sadness that it makes me feel sad in a way that I still respect the film or think is a good film. And also I've cut out, there's a couple that make me sad, very personal reasons. I don't because it's something that connects something that's happened in my life. And it's like, well, that doesn't really count. That's not the filmmaking. That's just, I'm going to talk about a sad time in my life. So I'm not going to go for those ones either. I thought the relationship between the father and son in Big Fish made me very, very sad, but also, I guess it was kind of happy crying. I cried my eyes out at the ending of Big Fish when the son realizes the nature of the dad's stories and the exaggerations and the purpose of it, and that father-son bonding situation. I thought that was beautiful when I first saw that. But I'm going to take this again down the route of animation. Okay. I'm changing my answer for one I think I sent you. I think I sent you Coco. And if you don't cry at Coco, you are... Well done. Well done. I mean, well done. You're a stronger person than me. I cannot watch the ending of Coco without bawling my eyes out.
You're on some form of mood leveling medication.
It's that. It also, again, that one does have a bit of connection with me in terms of the. I love music. I play a lot of music, and the power of music in that film, used to Grandma Coco to help her remember when he sings the song, is just nothing short of beautiful. But I'm going to stay with Pixar, and I will say that a film that made me think about myself more than most other films, I suppose, and also made me cry my eyes out every time I watch it, is Inside Out. And I think that the concept of a movie that ultimately points out the importance of sadness in your life and how you can't just be happy, and you need to accept that sadness can both define moments in your life and define you without being negative, and the importance of sadness and how that can be reflected in your life is a point that everyone, I think, will have. That moment where you realize the importance of having to let go or accept this, that there's a problem you've got to fix, or in case of the actual film, they've moved house and she doesn't like it, and she has to realize that this is not good. But I don't want to run away. I want to be with my family and have it pulled together and find the way through. And that intertwining of joy and sadness, like some people point to the death of Bing Bong, which is
it's heartbreaking.
It's sad, and again, we all think about that, but that moment didn't get me in the same way that the ending did. And to get to the new key memory, it's beautiful. I mean, truly beautiful. And I don't think we've had that many films that properly hit that perfection in a moment, maybe ever, but certainly in the last 10 years. And that scene on an emotional level for me is perfection and important, and a message that I think everyone just watching it should go, it's right. There is an importance to sadness, and that's not a bad thing. And it makes me reflect. Most films I watch so I'm not reflecting. Films are escapism for me. I don't want to be thinking about me. I want to be thinking about Indiana Jones when I'm watching a movie. But sadness, the interaction between joy and sadness at the end of their adventure makes me sad in the best possible way.
Yes, I completely agree. I went to watch it in the cinema. I had my two children. My eldest was, well, when it first came out. So when did it come out? So yeah, it would have been 10, 11 at the time, my eldest. And that moment at the end there, yeah, it got me. And I was like, no, I'm all right. Yeah, no, I'm okay. No, nothing to see. It got me. It got me right where they wanted you to be hit with. Absolute perfection with it. I must admit, I cried earlier on in the film when they put broccoli on a pizza.
Yeah, no, that's
broccoli on a pizza.
Come on, San Fran.
Yeah, but no, that film, they made it. Obviously, it's a Pixar film. It's for children, but there's so much of that film, far more than a lot of their other Pixar films, that the adults that are taking the kids get out of it.
Yeah. No, that's it. It works. I guess it's a family film, and family films are actually quite rare. Ones that can hit everyone at every level. Before we talked about Lego movies, I think those fall into that family bracket, but they're not making you feel and think in the same way. I know Pete Docter tried it again with Soul, and I like Soul a lot, but I do feel he's trying to go for a similar idea, and ultimately, if you're trying to swing again for Inside Out, you're going to miss, because he made one of my favorite animated films ever when he did that one. But I suppose that the older you get, the more you can think about what your core memories and the key things that have driven your life are, and are they all happy moments? Certainly for me, they're not. But that doesn't mean they're in any way less important in how it's driven my life. When you're a kid, only 8, watching it, you probably like Riley, and your kid, it's hockey and things like that. Yes. But the entire concept of things that drive your life and the importance of different emotions in driving that, I think I've got one I would put down to anger. Of the 5 emotions in the head, that's the one that I think would describe it. But that's life, isn't it? And so I guess the older you get, the more you go through, the more you'll get out of Inside Out. And the same way with Up, which is another one I nearly went for just for opening sequence. But if you've experienced loss in that way, I imagine that's even more heartbreaking than I find it. I've been very fortunate that me and my wife are healthy. But if you don't go down that, if at some point something happens, I can imagine that would hit you even harder. That's the joy of rewatching things with age and more experience.
Yes, absolutely. Another fantastic choice. I am passing by the happening, but so far, coming down your list here. We'll flip across. We'll drop out of emotion because I don't want to think about that moment in Inside Out that made me cry. But give me a film that you know the entire script of.
The Artist, I think all about 15 words that are in The Artist, and I think most people will. That was a very hilarious joke I just came up with off the top of my head because it's a silent movie. You see what I did there? Oh, I'm great. Not necessarily, there aren't that many. There really aren't that many where I've watched them enough that I'm pretty much word perfect. One does jump out, and I think a lot of people, especially males, I don't want to stereotype, but I think it's probably more of a male thing, will have me in this situation. back for question 3. I said there were 2 action films I could have gone for, and I went for the stupid one, not the one that pretends to be grounded in realism. The one that pretends to be grounded in realism is probably a bit of a better film. Who are we kidding? Die Hard is probably the best. It could be the best film ever made. If you went down that kind of route, I've watched it, I think, at least twice a year since I was about 18, and it's just wonderful. It's the characters that make it, and then the action. We'll start with John McClane, a true everyman action hero who is flawed both in his relationships and also then his situation. He doesn't have socks on. The way they do that is absolutely great. Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber, possibly the best villain in film history, certainly in the top 5 for me. His charisma, you almost want the man to get away with it. You then get the rest of the supporting cast. You get everything Ellis says, Hans, Bubby, I'm your white knight. You get the terrorists, all of which have little bits of personality. Like, Theo is bloody hilarious. You didn't bring me along for my bits of personality. And the quarterback is toast. He's just really, really charismatic in that. The script itself is so well thought out in how certain things pay off later on, right down to her name not being on the door, and then Dick Thornburg talking about the family, and then Hans Gruber realizing and picking up the picture that had been knocked over and things like that. It's got something that probably my favorite action trope is the bad guys who aren't perfect. I really, really hate perfect bad guys in action movies. I find it horrible. But it's why I like things like in Con Air when they're struggling to pull the plane out. Air Force One, when the plane nearly has to land before Gary Oldman's guys get it up again. Or in Die Hard, the bit where they're dragging the rocket launcher across the building and they drop it. And like, Chanel. It's so great. But they make it. They're sitting bugs out there. Hit them again. I'm going to count to 3. There will not be a 4. It's just endlessly quotable. It's a film where I can walk out of the room and come back in 2 minutes later and know exactly the moment we're at, almost word for word. It's a film that me and my friends, my housemates from university, are also really big fans of. So we're also able to quote each other a lot. So both of them have quoted at other people more than anything else. It's just great. My wife is not the biggest action film fan. She loves Die Hard because it's a really, really good movie. It's and I know Inside Out, and it's probably, apart from films I watched when I was really, really young or on video on repeat, the film I've watched most in my life.
Okay, fantastic. It would have been, I think, a totally different film if the person who had the rights originally made it, and that would have been Frank Sinatra as Frank McClane.
I'll give you that. It would not quite have been the same movie.
No. I think you're right though. The everyman part of Bruce Willis, he's the hero, but he's not a beefcake. He's not Stallone. He's not Schwarzenegger. He's not Hemsworth nowadays. Is the first big beefcake guy I could think of there. He's me. He's you. He just gets by doing what he can do,
and he feels it. And he feels it. That's the thing. It's not just that we've seen other ones where they can't, like any Liam Neeson film, where he's meant to just be a normal guy, but then he's never in pain in anything. Everything goes perfectly for him throughout the entire movie. This guy, say, standing on the glass and pulling it out from his feet and bleeding, and you feel the agony. The ending when he sees Holly, you can feel his relief compared to the ending of Commando, where Arnie is awesome, but he doesn't have any feelings, and he's already the Terminator at that point. There's no emotion there. Willis grounds it, and that's what makes the film for me. The script is phenomenal. The action works very well, but it's Rickman and Willis and their performances. Yes. And it was weird to say Bruce Willis's performance, especially as since then it's almost like he stopped trying. It's weird.
Yeah.
He
peaked. He peaked.
He peaked.
6 Sense.
He's okay in that. He's certainly not bad in that film. But I recently had to rewatch Die Hard 5. Me and my mate picked it for one of the feature presentation Sunday matches. I had to watch Die Hard 5 again. And it's just amazing how little effort both the writing had, because they're just perfect people who everything goes well, and they fall out of a building and they find that they haven't even got a scratch on them. And just Willis doesn't care anymore. There's no that the moment
Is
where
that the one in Moscow?
yes, and then Chernobyl. But
Yes.
Chernobyl, which according to that film has been untouched by humans ever since, which is factually inaccurate and could have been Googled, and they didn't. That's the level of effort they put into that movie. Several times, Bruce Willis shouts, "I'm on vacation," even though he is categorically not on vacation. He is there to get his son back, who he's seen on the news. It doesn't really work. But same for Die Hard 4. Die Hard 4 also gets a little bit too silly in the Die Hard world. Die Hard 3 and 2 I've got a lot of time for, but one is the best. And just moments where he's on the phone, broken after Ellis gets shot, telling Hans to go fuck himself. It just, that level of, the various levels the film has, from the big explosion, I'm going to jump off the roof with a fire hose wrapped around me, to him broken on the walkie-talkie after hearing Ellis get shot. That range the film has, you don't get in action films nowadays, genuine, I'm going to pause and focus on the emotion. And that's why it stood out. It's done well for such a long time, I suppose. I don't feel any of action films really come that close of that grounded in realism style. Like, if you're going to go the full other way and go Con Air, I've got a lot of time for that as well. I like it when it goes stupid, but I know Die Hard inside out, and I know a lot of other people do, and that's because it's great. And we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, right. We're 9 down, 1 to go on this episode. We've mentioned it a couple of times. I think I know where we're going with this. Who's your favourite director?
M. Night Shyamalan with The Sixth Sense and The Happening has just done so much good work. I mean,
what a twist!
What a twist! Oh, Lady in the Water as well. You know, the guy's just got classic after that film's unwatchable. Like we watched The Happening and we thought this film is amazing. I loved it so much. We tried watching Lady in the Water, and after about half an hour, we're like, "Are you getting anything from this?" No, this is just should we put on Die Hard? Let's put on Die Hard. No, my favourite director is, and I expect always will be, David Fincher. David Fincher is a wonderful, wonderful filmmaker. I don't think it's all perfect, and I think it's very rare you find a filmmaker that is everything perfect. Maybe the guy who made Paddington and Paddington 2. I think that's all he's done so far. Maybe he's got the best average.
Yeah, fair enough.
But the quantity of masterpieces that Fincher's put out. We talked a lot about Social Network and Fight Club so far, but I think I call them the best drama and my favourite film. Seven, I think, is the best thriller I could probably ever made in that full-on crime thriller style. And again, a huge part of it is the script, but also the way Fincher is able to bring the atmosphere into everything that happens, the desperation, and the way the final scene is shot with the handheld camera filming Somerset and Mills as going mad, and then this one straight steady cam at he who I'm not going to bother mentioning by name as he gives the awful updates of what's happened. It's absolutely chilling as a horror and as a thriller, and it's so bold in the way that it takes things. Like, again, it doesn't end in the way you'd think it would normally end, and it's the craft. The craft is fantastic there. You look at the other one of his that I really, really put up there is Gone Girl. Gone Girl for me it's like Seven, but a little bit more accessible. And that's that's neither a criticism nor a compliment to it. That's not a good nor a bad thing. It's elevated by, I think, the best performance in any Fincher film. I will say it's Rosamund Pike in Gone Girl, who is absolutely terrifying. On this channel, I did something where it was naming the best actresses of all time, and I picked Rosamund Pike almost effectively off that one performance. She is chilling. And again, I won't go into that for too much of the spoilers in there, but the way that Ben Affleck and her interact in the flashbacks and how as the movie progresses is... It's dark. It's dark. And Fincher has that. He has this atmosphere of things are not okay. things are moving at a pace that we are out of control of, and they're not okay, and no one can pretend to be in control here. He has it in The Social Network. He has that in Fight Club. He has that in Seven. He certainly has that in The Game, which is probably my least favorite David Fincher film. But you always feel that things are moving, and that's in how it's shot and how he does the craft of how he makes the actors respond to what's around them. The way he can use people in the frame as well is great, with the close-ups getting worse and worse as things get more mad. On the flip side, he's clearly a lot more in control than just having things getting more and more explosive. And not necessarily explosive, like, in terms of what's happening on the screen, but in terms of how the emotions work. I would say the craft of Zodiac I like more than the film. For me, it's only an 8 out of 10. There's a lot of people say favorite Fincher film. I'm not arguing with you. I'd put it slightly below some of his other ones. But firstly, the way he shoots the Zodiac killer scenes is, if that was just a horror movie, cut them down to half an hour, I bet that's the best horror movie ever. Just proof that he can do that genre in a terrifying manner. But the way the film gets longer and slower and more desperate as Jake Gyllenhaal's character gets slower and more desperate, it's just the best example I can think of the filmmaking craft reflecting the emotions of the people. The film just slows and slows and slows. Of course, again, spoilers, the Zodiac killer has not been found, and his case was never actually solved. And the desperation that you feel in that final, you get into the final hour and a quarter, hour and a half of the film, knowing that you've had all the deaths, and all you're going to get now is a hunt that is going to go nowhere, and it pains you as much as it pains him, and that is cinematic craft at its absolute finest.
Yes.
I'll zip through a few others. I think Panic Room is also a really, really entertaining film. It's not at its top level. I think most people would. It's not quite at the top level for me, but it's still a really enjoyable flick to put on. I'll say that Mank is one of my favorite films of last year. And again, it's a very different style for him, for Fincher's work. It's a lot more structured, I felt it's a lot more controlled, which suits the story, I suppose. In how it's being told, it's also a very, very affectionate homage to Citizen Kane. I find a lot of the way that things are shot. Really nice to do film a film as if it's from the 50s, but not crap. It's a lot of films from that era are pretty crap. It was 40s, I forget the year of Citizen Kane. Alien 3, I think, is by no means the worst Alien film. He's still clearly finding his feet in. Alien 4 is way worse. Alien 4 is way worse. Yeah. Prometheus is way worse.
I kind of cut the Alien. I don't know. No, Prometheus doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's a good idea. That's fair.
Yeah,
fair.
Doesn't exist.
I quite like Alien 3. I like it more than The Game. The Game is probably my least favorite. I think the script ruins it. I think the filmmaking and the acting is fantastic, but the script just betrays all the good things that are happening as that movie progresses. Benjamin Button is similar. I think Fincher could not have made that script better, and the acting and the effects could not have been better, but ultimately it ends up being a little bit bland in the final third, despite Fincher's best efforts to save it. It's almost like every alternate film is really good. Like, you do feel that, you get Alien 3, then you get 7, then you get The Game, then you get Fight Club, then Panic Room, and Zodiac, then Benjamin Button,
the new Bond.
Then Social Network, then and Dragon Tattoo. I really like The Girl with Dragon Tattoo. It's not quite as top as his best work, but it's an awesome movie. Like, that is a lot. I'd say it's better than the original, the one the remaking. I would acknowledge the caveat that I don't think it does quite enough new to justify its own existence, but it's still a great movie, and I think it probably is the better of the two. Fincher's work just excites me, and I'm so glad he's back, and I think Mank is an excellent movie. I really hope he wins Best Director for it. He's got a good chance, I feel. I think Amanda Seyfried will probably get an Oscar based on how the current trends are moving, which is weird considering some of the stuff she's done in the past, because she was in Les Mis, and she's not good in Les Mis. No. I just feel that even at his worst, Fincher is still incredibly watchable, entertaining, and at his best, it's just unparalleled thrills in the cinema. And that's what I want from my directors, personally.
Fantastic. I will say, as a final note for him, my favourite work of his has to be 1987's Patrick Swayze's video "She's Like the Wind."
I mean, I think Madonna's Vogue is even better.
You can't beat prime Swayze singing. No, he is one of those ones where before I started doing this show and getting more involved in films and just putting it in and switching my head off to watch it, I didn't realize just how good a filmmaker he was until I sat down and researched and watched films that he's done. He is, yes, a very, very good director. Yes.
I think we can agree on that. He is
we can agree on that.
David, I'm sure you're watching. Like, we've agreed, yes, you're a very, very good filmmaker. Put that on your CV.
Thank you, David. Right, we've made it through 10. Okay, we're going to call it a day there. Thank you for joining me so far. It's as I say, you've had some absolutely fantastic picks. 9 of them have been very good. But right now, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. If you want to be on the show and be where Jonathon is, I don't mean Scotland, because apart from the whiskey, let's be honest, it's not got a lot going for it. You can email the show. You can email the show on thatmadeyourlist@outlook.com. We've got a Facebook page, That Made Your List. I'll give it a like there, send me a message, and just like Jonathon, you can get yourself on the show. I've been Dave Goodger. He's been Jonathon Knowles. This has been That Made Your List.